and in many other respects not be a bad man. The act of burglary is punishable because it is intelligible. But when acts are unintelligible we can only refer them to a general untrustworthiness, and guard against them by a general restraint. If a man breaks into a house to get a piece of bread, we can appeal to his reason in various ways. We can hang him for housebreaking, or again, as has occurred to some daring thinkers, we can give him a piece of bread. But if he breaks in, let us say, to steal the parings of other people's finger nails, then we are in a difficulty. We cannot imagine what he is going to do with them, and therefore cannot easily imagine what we are going to do with him. If a villain comes in cloak and mask, and puts a little arsenic in the soup, we can collar him and say to him distinctly, "You are guilty of murder, and I will now consult the code of tribal law under which we live, to see if this practice is not forbidden." But if a man in the same cloak and mask is found at midnight putting a little soda water in the soup, what can we say? Our charge necessarily becomes a more general one. We can only observe, with a moderation almost amounting to weakness, "You seem to be the sort of person who will do this sort of thing," and then we can lock him up. The principle of the indeterminate sentence is the creation of the indeterminate mind. It does apply to the incomprehensible creature, the lunatic, and it applies to nobody else. The second thing to be noted is this, that it is only by the unanimity of sane men that we can condemn this man as utterly separate. If he says a tree is a lamp post, he is mad, but only because all other men say it is a tree. If some men thought it was a tree with a lamp on it, and others thought it was a lamp post wreathed with branches and vegetation, then it would be a matter of opinion and degree, and he would not be mad but merely extreme. Certainly he would not be mad if nobody but a botanist could see it was a tree. Certainly his enemies might be madder than he if nobody but a lamplighter could see it was not a lamp post. And similarly a man is not imbecile if only a Eugenist thinks so. The question then raised would not be his sanity, but the sanity of one botanist or one lamplighter or one Eugenist. That which can condemn the abnormally foolish is not the abnormally clever, which is obviously a matter in dispute. That which can condemn the abnormally foolish is the normally foolish. It is when he begins to say and do things that even stupid people do not say or do that we have a right to treat him as the exception and not the rule. It is only because we, none of us, profess to be anything more than man that we have authority to treat him as something less. Now the first principle behind Eugenics becomes plain enough. It is the proposal that somebody or something should criticise men with the same superiority with which men criticise madmen. It might exercise this right with great moderation, but I am not here talking about the exercise, but about the right. Its claim certainly is to bring all human life under the lunacy laws. Now this is the first weakness in the case of the Eugenists, that they cannot define who is to control whom. They cannot say by what authority they do these things. They cannot see the exception is different from the rule, even when it is misrule, even when it is an unruly rule. The sound sense in the old lunacy law was this, that you cannot deny that a man is a citizen until you are practically prepared to deny that he is a man. Men, and only men, can be the judges of whether he is a man. But any private club of prigs can be judges of whether he ought to be a citizen. When once we step down from that tall and splintered peak of pure insanity, we step on to a tableland where one man is not so widely different from another. Outside the exception, what we find is the average. And the practical legal shape of the quarrel is this, that unless the normal men have the right to expel the abnormal, what particular sort of abnormal men have the right to expel the normal men? If sanity is not good enough, what is there that is saner than sanity? Without any grip of the notion of a rule and an exception, the general idea of judging people's heredity breaks down and is useless. for this reason, that if everything is the result of a doubtful heredity, the judgment itself is the result of a doubtful heredity also. Let it judge not that it be not judged. Eugenists, strange to say, have fathers and mothers like other people, and our opinion about their fathers and mothers is worth exactly as much as their opinions about ours. None of the parents were lunatics, and the rest is mere likes and dislikes. Suppose Dr. Saleeby had gone up to Byron and said, "My lord, I perceive you have a club foot and inordinate passions. Such are the hereditary results of a profligate soldier marrying a hot-tempered woman." The poet might logically reply, with characteristic lucidity and impropriety, "Sir, I perceive you have a confused mind and an unphilosophic theory about other people's love affairs. Such are the hereditary delusions bred by a Syrian doctor marrying a Quaker lady from York." Suppose Dr. Karl Pearson had said to Shelley, "From what I see of your temperament, you are running great risks in forming a connection with the daughter of a fanatic and eccentric like Godwin." Shelley would be employing the strict rationalism of the older and stronger freethinkers if he answered, "From what I observe of your mind, you are rushing on destruction in marrying the great niece of an old corpse of a courtier and dilettante like Samuel Rogers." It is only opinion for opinion. Nobody can pretend that either Mary Godwin or Samuel Rogers was mad, and the general view a man may hold about the healthiness of inheriting their blood or type is simply the same sort of general view by which men do marry for love or liking. There is no reason to suppose that Dr. Karl Pearson is any better judge of a bridegroom than the bridegroom is of a bride. An objection may be anticipated here, but it is very easily answered. It may be said that we do, in fact, call in medical specialists to settle whether a man is mad, and that these specialists go by technical and even secret tests that cannot be known to the mass of men. It is obvious that this is true. It is equally obvious that it does not affect our argument. When we ask the doctor whether our grandfather is going mad, we still mean mad by our own common human definition. We mean he is going to be a certain sort of person whom all men recognise when once he exists. That certain specialists can detect the approach of him before he exists does not alter the fact that it is of the practical and popular madman that we are talking, and of him alone. The doctor merely sees certain fact potentially in the future, while we, with less information, can only see it in the present. But his fact is our fact and everybody's fact, or we should not bother about it at all. Here is no question of the doctor bringing an entirely new sort of person under coercion, as in the Feeble-Minded Bill. The doctor can say, "Tobacco is death to you," because the dislike of death can be taken for granted, being a highly democratic institution. And it is the same with the dislike of the indubitable exception called madness. The doctor can say, "Jones has that twitch in the nerves, and he may burn down the house," but it is not the medical detail we fear, but the moral upshot. We should say, "Let him twitch, as long as he doesn't burn down the house." The doctor may say, "He has that look in his eyes, and he may take the hatchet and brain you all," but we do not object to the look in his eyes as such. We object to the consequences, which, once come, we should all call insane, if there were no doctors in the world. We should say, "Let him look how he likes, as long as he does not look for the hatchet." Now that specialists are valuable for this particular and practical purpose of predicting the approach of enormous and admitted human calamities, nobody but a fool would deny. But that does not bring us 1 inch nearer to allowing them the right to define what is a calamity, or to call things calamities which common sense does not call calamities. We call in the doctor to save us from death, and death being admittedly an evil, he has the right to administer the queerest and most recondite pill which he may think is a cure for all such menaces of death. He has not the right to administer death as the cure for all human ills. And as he has no moral authority to enforce a new conception of happiness, so he has no moral authority to enforce a new conception of sanity. He may know I am going mad, for madness is an isolated thing like leprosy, and I know nothing about leprosy. But if he merely thinks my mind is weak, I may happen